Self-control is often misunderstood as a simple matter of willpower or force of character, but the truth is far more complex. Most people believe self-control is about resisting temptation or pushing yourself to do things you do not want to do. While that is partially true, this limited view overlooks the science behind how our brains and behaviors actually work. Self-control is a skill, a muscle that can be strengthened and optimized, but it is not infinite. Misunderstanding this fundamental fact is where most people fail, and it is why so many struggle to maintain discipline, achieve goals, or avoid destructive habits. At the core of self-control is the brain's executive function, primarily centered in the prefrontal cortex. This region is responsible for decision-making, planning, and evaluating long-term consequences. When you exercise self-control, the prefrontal cortex is actively regulating impulses generated by older brain structures, like the amygdala, which seeks immediate pleasure or avoids discomfort. The challenge is that these two systems are constantly in tension. Humans are wired to seek rewards and avoid pain quickly, a survival mechanism that once protected our ancestors. Modern life, however, presents temptations that are abundant and instantaneous, from social media scrolling to sugary snacks, making self-control more difficult than it has ever been. One of the biggest misconceptions about self-control is that it is a finite resource that depletes quickly. Many people believe that resisting temptation early in the day will drain their ability to make good decisions later. While willpower fatigue is real to some extent, recent research suggests that mindset and context play a larger role than previously thought. Believing that self-control is limited can actually undermine your performance. Conversely, approaching challenges with the understanding that self-control is a skill that can be strategically applied makes it easier to maintain consistent behavior over time. Self-control is not about surviving each moment with sheer force. It is about designing systems and environments that make desirable behavior the default choice. A common error is assuming that willpower alone is sufficient. This approach is often why diets, workout routines, or savings plans fail. People rely on sheer determination to resist immediate gratification, expecting motivation and discipline to carry them through. What most people get wrong is that willpower is only effective for short-term battles, not long-term success. The secret lies in habit formation and environmental engineering. By structuring your life to reduce friction for positive behaviors and increase friction for negative ones, you create conditions where self-control is no longer a struggle. For instance, keeping healthy food visible and snacks out of reach, or setting automatic savings transfers reduces reliance on moment-to-moment willpower. Another critical aspect of self-control that is often misunderstood is the role of delayed gratification. Humans are not naturally equipped to resist instant rewards, but training the brain to prioritize long-term benefits can dramatically increase success in every domain. Experiments like the famous marshmallow test reveal that children who can delay gratification tend to achieve better outcomes later in life, not because they were inherently smarter, but because they learned to manage impulses. The key is not to rely on brute force, but to practice incremental control in low-stakes situations. Small successes in resisting temptation strengthen neural pathways and increase confidence, making it easier to handle more significant challenges. Emotions are another factor that most people underestimate in self-control. People often think that discipline is a matter of ignoring feelings, but emotional regulation is a core component of self-control. Stress, anxiety, and fatigue are significant triggers for impulsive behavior. High emotional arousal can override the prefrontal cortex and lead to poor choices. Developing strategies to manage emotional states, such as meditation, journaling, or controlled breathing, can improve self-control dramatically. The science shows that it is not just about resisting impulses, but managing the internal conditions that make those impulses more compelling. A critical mistake in understanding self-control is failing to recognize the importance of identity and beliefs. People who see themselves as disciplined and capable are far more likely to exercise self-control consistently. Self-control is not just a skill, it is a reflection of identity. When choices align with the version of yourself you want to become, they feel natural and effortless. Conversely, when actions conflict with your self-perception, it requires constant struggle to maintain control. Framing self-control as part of your identity is a powerful psychological tool that most people overlook. It is easier to act consistently when your behavior reinforces who you believe you are. One of the most surprising findings from neuroscience is that self-control can be strengthened through practice, much like a muscle. Repeatedly exercising restraint in small ways improves overall ability to regulate impulses. For example, practicing a short meditation session daily, avoiding a single unnecessary snack, or completing a small challenging task builds the neural networks responsible for self-control. Over time, these networks become more efficient, reducing the perceived effort required to maintain discipline. This incremental approach is where most people fail, because they look for immediate, dramatic transformation instead of gradual, sustainable improvement. Another misconception is that temptation must always be resisted consciously. In reality, the most effective self-control strategies are proactive rather than reactive. Designing an environment where undesired behavior is difficult and desired behavior is easy reduces the need for conscious effort. Removing triggers, creating routines, and setting up automatic systems all reduce reliance on willpower. For example, if you struggle with overspending, using automatic bill payments, unsubscribing from marketing emails, and carrying only necessary cash removes the constant moment-to-moment challenge of resisting temptation. Self-control becomes embedded in the structure of daily life, rather than dependent on fluctuating motivation. Delayed gratification is also closely tied to long-term goal setting. People often misunderstand self-control as resisting small, immediate temptations, but it is equally about aligning actions with meaningful, future-oriented goals. Clear goals provide a framework that guides decisions and reduces mental fatigue. When every choice is filtered through the lens of long-term objectives, impulses lose their power. The science supports this approach. People with strong future orientation consistently make healthier, smarter, and more productive decisions. Self-control is amplified when it is not just about resisting urges, but actively moving toward a vision that matters. One area where most people go wrong is misjudging the impact of social influence on self-control. Human behavior is deeply social, and the people around you strongly affect your ability to exercise restraint. Being surrounded by individuals who indulge in instant gratification or normalize undisciplined behavior makes resisting impulses harder. Conversely, environments where discipline and delayed gratification are the norm enhance self-control. Social context can either drain or reinforce the neural circuits responsible for restraint. Choosing your social circles intentionally is not just a lifestyle decision. It is a strategic move to strengthen self-control. Technology is another challenge most people overlook. Modern devices provide endless opportunities for instant reward. From social media notifications to streaming services, these constant stimuli hijack attention and make it harder to resist impulses. The solution is not simply willpower, but intentional design. Turning off notifications, using website blockers, or scheduling tech-free periods creates boundaries that support self-control. Technology is a tool, and mastering self-control requires mastering the way we interact with it. Left unmanaged, it erodes the very neural mechanisms needed for long-term restraint. Self-control is also enhanced by reflection and mindfulness. Understanding the situations where impulses are strongest and the triggers that weaken discipline allows for proactive strategies. Keeping a journal of lapses or moments of weakness is not self-punishment, but data collection. Awareness of patterns enables smarter planning, making it easier to predict and navigate challenging moments. Mindfulness training strengthens the ability to observe impulses without acting on them immediately, creating a pause where conscious, deliberate choices can replace automatic reactions. Another surprising aspect is that physical states affect self-control. Fatigue, hunger, and stress significantly impair executive function, making it harder to resist temptation or stay disciplined. This is why structured sleep, balanced nutrition, and regular exercise are not just health recommendations, but critical self-control tools. The body and brain are interconnected, and neglecting physical needs reduces the effectiveness of mental restraint. Self-control is strongest when the body is well maintained, reducing vulnerability to impulsive behavior. Self-control is not about being perfect or constantly resisting temptation. It is about designing your life so that the right actions become natural, reducing reliance on fleeting willpower. It is where ordinary people achieve extraordinary results by aligning daily behavior with long-term goals, managing impulses strategically, and reinforcing the neural circuits of restraint. Self-control is not magic. It is science applied consistently, and mastering it is a superpower accessible to anyone willing to learn, practice, and refine the process.